So they wanted to keep Her Majesty's empire, and they were fighting war for freedom. So you can see how lies are told. You know, you don't call them lies, you call them ideology, but you can see how lies are told with a straight face, what the establishment does. So the idea of freedom, the idea of equality in capitalism, these are ideologies. But in order to understand, and I emphasize this point, here is the most important difference between the so-called sociological theory, which is anything but theory, is outrightly bankrupt. Sociological theory is outrightly bankrupt because they cannot and they do not explain those intrinsic connections between economic, political, and ideological. And I'm not saying, once again, don't get me wrong, and don't get anything wrong. If you read even Lenin's 3-4 pages, one of the things that Lenin makes very clear in this is Marxism is not key to every question in history. Marxism does not answer all questions of society and humanity. Marxism answers one very simple question, and rather raises a very simple question. The question that is being raised in Marxism, and the question that Marx raised, why problem of inequality, poverty, and exploitation cannot be solved by capitalism, period. Nothing else, just single sentence question. Why problems of inequality, exploitation, and poverty cannot be solved under capitalism. And that's all. And he tried to show it because of the social relations of capitalism, those social relations which define the juridical, political, and ideological. And when he talks about the question that you guys were asking the other day, legal system, political system being rooted in economy, all that Marx was trying to say, and is trying to say, and if we have time we are going to talk about that today, is that it is the centrality of social relations of production. In order to understand the juridical structure, the political structure, values, and norms, you have to understand the nature of social relations of production. Whether it is feudalism, it is antiquity, or egalitarian societies. Even in egalitarian societies, it is the centrality of social relations of production, supported by the norms, supported by a political structure. But this relationship between social relations of production and legal, political, juridical structure and ideology, that's all that being said in Marxism. And the test case for that is history. Historically, did it happen, did it happen? That's where you go into different modes of production. You see their social relations of production. You see their political structure. You see their normative structure. You see their juridical structure. You see the system of courts. You see the idea of justice. And it is all related to that. It is not reductionist. It is the interrelationship. It is the interrelationship. And this whole idea is poo-pooed or ridiculed in mainstream sociology as reductionist and simplistic. We will come to that while talking about class relations and class by Max Weber and Marx. This whole thesis is rejected as simplistic, and that outrightly simplistic and absurd thesis in sociology, which separates social relations from economic and political and ideological, and presents it as whole society, that is called complex. You remember, I have told you, and if I haven't told you, I want to tell you, that sociologists have one nuclear weapon, one concept, which is like nuclear weapon, ultimate weapon of sociology. And you know what that term is? Complex. When they say, oh, it's complex, means they have nothing to say. In the first place, that they are bankrupt, they have nothing to say. And they have nothing to say, then they will say, oh, it's complex. So when it comes to Marxism, they say, oh, class is complex, Marx reduces it to economics. Then who understands the complexity of class? Oh, Max Weber, and you will read, we are going there, you will read Max Weber's concept of class and Marx's concept of class. Actually, you find real complexity in Marx's concept of class, but that is dismissed as simplistic. You know, if you want to get an example of that, you again go back to sociology of caste. How sociologists have been trying to explain caste and calling it complex by making it more and more absurd, by making it more and more absurd every day. And that thing, you know, you'll see by the time we come to see German ideology that sociologists of caste are making exactly the same mistake that Marx and Engels talked about in mid-19th century Germany, in mid-19th century Europe, that ideologues were making. They are doing the same mistake until today. Gandhi and Ambedkar did exactly that from two sides. Gandhi and Ambedkar did exactly that from two sides, and that debate has not been able to lift sociology of class out of that mess, mainly because of their hostility towards Marxism. Mainly, are you reading, by the way, the suicide by Dalit student in Hyderabad? And all the writings on that side are also being used to reflect adversely on Marxism. That he was one time a Marxist, he got disillusioned. So all Dalit sociologists have been disillusioned with Marxism, so what are they doing? They are going from one idealist theory to another. And this is what Ambedkar himself did. He went to Hinduism, he saw the main source of caste in Hinduism, so he wanted to abolish Hinduism. And Gandhi wanted to save Hinduism, and both were fighting over Hinduism. Hinduism has very little to do with caste. You can abolish Hinduism, you will not be able to abolish caste. And you can abolish caste, you can still retain Hinduism. There is no connection between Hinduism and caste, that one cannot live without other. They can live without other. Yes, religion is used for maintaining caste. Religion doesn't create caste. And you can have Hinduism without caste. You can have caste without Hinduism. So that's a different point. But what I'm telling you is the idea of theory. The idea how to make a social theory. In making a social theory, the most important conceptual framework that you need is the concepts that can relate the material with the ideal, concepts that can relate economic, political, and ideological. So that is the surplus value. Now the third and final point, and the last component of Marxism. Okay. This will be simple. French socialism. That was the third source and the third component, the idea of socialism. French socialism, what was French socialism? Actually, that's where again I say, Ibn Durkheim, he mentions that he is aware of that problem, and so were all the sociologists, i.e. the problem created by capitalism. And the problem created by capitalism was the exploitation of workers, the deteriorating conditions of the working class. The peasant had at least some guarantee. Peasant in feudalism has some guarantee of subsistence, a plot of land that landlord gave the peasant. Capitalism took that also away and gave no other guarantees. So the rise of capitalism was accompanied by all kinds of problems for working class, working poor. And French thinkers were very disturbed about that. So they developed the idea of socialism, a society in which there will be no exploitation, a society in which there will be cooperation, a society in which there will be equality. But there was a problem. The idea of socialism was all right. But what was lacking in French socialism? What was lacking in French socialism was again the same problem, that it was sentimental. It was more sentimental than scientific. There were noble sentiments that there should be no exploitation, there should be equality, there should be harmony, there should be some kind of collective sharing of resources. That was fine. But the problem is, what was the real problem? They had no idea of class contradictions, class struggle. No idea of class contradictions. And what was the problem there? The idea of class, again, we will come to that while discussing class, which will be our next topic. No, after German ideology, is the idea of class was not Marxist. Actually, of all the people, it is Adam Smith who uses the idea of class and also something like class struggle, which brought down feudalism. It is reconceptualizing the idea of class or the concept of class. What is the concept of class that Marx proposed, which was different from the idea of class before? So idea of class is not Marxist. Idea of class was already there. All that Marx says is that capitalist society is still based on class contradictions, class antagonism, and it is society in which class struggle going on. But the real value of class was that French socialism, they were unhappy with capitalism, but they did not know either the causes of the problems, the root cause of the problem, nor did they know the way out. So what Marx did there, he takes the idea of socialism, but he says socialism is not possible if we do not change the class relations of capitalism. So the value of class contradictions and class struggle is what was missing from French socialism. So he takes the idea of socialism and adds to it the idea of class struggle as the instrument to bring about socialism, to end capitalism, to bring about socialism. It may work, it may not work. If it doesn't work, you are stuck with capitalism. If it works, there is a possibility of another society. But if it doesn't work, then the whole idea of equality, harmony, and worker and capitalist in peace as a global system, it will remain a myth, it will remain a dream. So to sum up this point, the Marxism is dialectical, materialist, it is based on the idea of exploitation, class contradictions, and class struggle under capitalism, and the way out of capitalism, the way to socialism is through class struggle. And that is what constitutes the totality of Marxism. And that is sociology. That is not economics. That is not politics. That is real sociology, because it talks about social relations. It talks about social relations. And it talks about social relations which are not isolated from economic, political, and cultural. These social relations are embedded in economic, political, and cultural, and the other way around. And that is Marxist sociology. That is Marxist sociology. Now, you get 1 or 2 minutes breathing space, and we are going to talk about where do you get the description of this framework in Karl Marx. That is the preface. It is in the preface, and that's the only place, that one paragraph in the preface where he conceptualizes this idea of society in which economic, political, cultural, and social are intrinsically connected. How social relations come into being, and how they change, which is what you call the social structure and social change. That is defined in that one single paragraph in the preface, and we will talk about that paragraph, and that will the end of our discussion. Did anyone of you send a comment on the paragraph, on the preface? You did? Oh, do you have it here? Huh? You don't leave it back in your fridge at home, no? You have it here. Oh, great. Would you like to share it with us, or you want to keep it for yourself? Huh? You can share. Okay, I know you are socialist, but it's okay. So, yeah. Yeah, okay. Start. Okay, we are going to talk about the preface. The reason we are discussing preface is because that's where Marx actually conceptualizes what you call social and also transformation of the social, how society changes. So that is preface. It's just one paragraph in the preface. That's what we are going to discuss. Oh, what happened to my coffee? It's all going there? Okay. Oh. Sorry, I'm making a little bit mess here. I don't know what happened. My coffee is spilling. I do. Thank you. Comrades. Thank you. Oh, let me see. Maybe I have this. No. See, I carry everything. I just don't get it when I need it. Okay, I'll borrow it from you. Thank you. I should not do this, but... Okay. Okay, so none of you has it here? Okay, read quickly. They can hear. Yeah. Okay.
I said, in capitalism, private labor produces exchange value, and this is how this becomes universal labor or social labor, and that universal labor is like a type of labor, is the labor for a capitalist society, and that this leads to it becomes a part of production, and production for exchange and not for the use of exchange value, and this leads to the development of capital/money. It says,
oh my God.
Marx says that this is not the place to discuss the actual processes of complex labor to simple labor, but to tell us that it's a constant process. That labor is like a constant, whether it's like surplus, labor or necessary labor, it's like labor is constantly needed.
Is that all, guys? Does anyone of you have the text? Huh? You have it online? Can I just borrow that? Yeah, I need that. Okay, thank you. Yeah, just one second. I need your help. From unintended publication of just a second. Oh no. Now where is the preface? Okay, here. Oh yeah. transformation is always systematic. Okay, got it. Oh no, I have it here. You take it. Thank you. You guys are so resourceful. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Okay, guys. Why is that preface so important? Because in the preface, Marx defines what is dialectical and historical materialism, what is the method for studying society, and what is society. So here is again I want to remind you that what sociologists call society, social system. Do you remember Jawaharlal Nehru University has a center for the study of social systems that is separate from the Center for the Study of Economics and Political System and other things? That is symptomatic of the crisis of sociology right from its inception. That sociology defines social system which is separate from economic system and political system and ideology or cultural studies. And that's the problem which is resolved in Marxism in a very different way. So what we are going to do here, instead of calling it society, social system, social structure, Marxists call it mode of production. But unlike social system, mode of production has economic, political, yes, it is not that sociology does not consider economic, political as integral part of social. It is that sociology does not have the concepts. It does not have the conceptual apparatus to connect the social, economic, and political. That's why political science does political, economics does economic, and sociology does social, and then there may be cultural studies which does culture. So you have culture in one area, political in another area, economic in another area, then you try to put them together and create some kind of other mess there. Rather than seeing how they are intrinsically connected is very different than doing them separately and then bringing them together. Actually, in a very different context, not exactly this context, in a very different context, Durkheim says the same thing about sociology and society and psychology. He says that sociology is a collection of individuals, but sociology is more than the sum total of its parts, i.e. individuals. He says that if you collect all the individuals and study their psychology and study their and try to make sociology out of that, you will go nowhere. Because sociology is a reality which is a collection of individuals, but it is more than that. And that's he takes some analogy from chemistry, that you combine two elements, and the third compound that is created is different from both the elements that you combine to make it. Like he takes the example of water, hydrogen, oxygen, whatsoever you combine. But if you analyze the properties of hydrogen and oxygen separately, you will not get the property of water, because water, which is made of hydrogen, is a different kind of reality, even though it is made of those two components. Similarly, he says that society is made of individuals, but it's a different kind of law of synthesis, or whatsoever he borrows from chemistry. It's a different kind of reality. So what happens here in slightly different context, that separating economics, politics, culture, ideology, all that, and then trying to bring it together, what you call interdisciplinary studies, or what else it is called? Interdisciplinary? Is there any other term for that? There is another term for that. So all those interdisciplinary and all that, those are all flawed approaches. And that is again where the key terms of political economy are very important, because those key words or key concepts of political economy help us understand the underlying connection between economic, political, social, and culture in a social system at a particular point of time, That's why history is so important. The idea of history is so important. I still remember, I'll never forget, at the Delhi School of Economics, from my respectable colleagues, one of the constant battles that I had there, they kept on telling me again and again that sociologists are not historians and sociologists should not do history. And their argument was, because we are not trained in history, we should not do history. The reason why we are not trained in history, because we teach sociology in a wrong way right from the beginning. Yeah, have you heard of that saying in Sanskrit, Pratham grase makshika pata? You understand? Pratham grase makshika pata, the very first bite you have, you get a fly in that. And that's the starting point, wrong starting point. The very first dose of sociology that they give you there is a fly in that first dose, and you never recover from that. You live with that for the rest of it, and you keep on building on that. More flies, more you eat, the more flies you get there with your food. So that's the problem, because the conceptual framework of sociology and the fundamental assumption of sociology, which is premised on a separation of economic, political, and social, is a wrong starting point. So when they talk about society, when they talk about social system, when they do not have that instrument. And that's another thing which Marxism says, part of Marxist theory or sociological theory, that if you want to understand a Turkey, you can see Turkey with your eyes, but you will not understand. In order to understand Turkey, if you want to understand how Turkey is made, you need a knife, dissect it to see its anatomy, So here is the first thing. What Marx uses in the preface is not society, is not even mode of production. Those things will come later. What he talks about is anatomy of civil society. Anatomy of civil society. What is important here is anatomy. Anatomy of civil society. If you want to know the anatomy, then you need knife. You just don't. And that's where there is this philosophical difference between what it appears and what it is. So appearance is not enough. Eyes are not enough. In addition to eyes, you need the knife. So the conceptual terms are that knife. They are the knife which dissect it and show the connection between one part and the other. So why does he talk about the anatomy of civil society? A little bit of background of anatomy of civil society is this, that according to Hegel, who was Marx's teacher in the sense that Marx followed Hegel's philosophy very seriously, the essence of human society is to be found in civil society. What he defined civil society was, what he defined as civil society, or the essence of civil society was